Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back. Today's daf is Nazir daf Chafav. We are holding on Chafei Hamid Beis, 2 lines from the bottom of the Amid. Amar Mar. Let's just go back a step. We have a Nazir. A Nazir is meant to bring 3 karbanos: Chatas, Oila, and Shlamim. A keves for the Oila, a kivsa, female sheep for the Chatas, and an Ayla, ram, for his Shlamim. Suppose he sets aside money for this purpose. He has a fund, a Karban Nazir fund. Now, something happens and he doesn't need it anymore. The classic example that the Gemara brings is mace. He passes away. We have this unused money. What do we do with it? Well, it depends. If the money was already allocated, it was already earmarked, this is for the Chatas, this is for the Oila, etc., that is what we call mifurashin. It's been specified, it's been tagged, it's been labeled. Then we deal with it one way. The Oila money is directed towards an Oila, Shlamim towards a Shlamim, and the Chatas money goes to Yam HaMelech. It cannot be used. Whereas if the money is sasam, if the fund was just a collective fund, not yet labeled, not yet separated into portions, this is for Chatas. No, it was sort of an unlabeled, unspecified, generic fund. That's what we call setumin. The money was just unspecified, unearmarked. In that case, the halacha is that it's directed towards nidava. We send it to the Beis HaMikdash. There's a special nidava fund used to purchase karbanos oila brought on the mizbeach. Question: How can we do that? How can we take Chatas money and direct it towards Oila? How can it be converted into an Oila? The answer is, that's the halacha. According to Rabbi Yehuda, halacha l'Moshe Sinai. We have a collective fund here, meant for all 3 karbanis, which belong to this Nazir. It was not yet earmarked, not yet labeled. It goes to Nadava, despite the fact that there is some potential Chatas money there. According to Rish Lakish, it was actually learned from a pasuk, as we discussed the other day. Today's daf will focus on this concept and will package this halacha for us. When exactly do we apply this concept? When exactly do we take this ma'is sustumin, this unallocated fund, and send it to Nadava? The Gemara today will present the guidelines of when we do that, what is considered stumin, unspecified, what is considered mifurash, specified, under what circumstances do these monies go to Nadava. Okay, Amar, let's go back to Rabbi Yehuda, who said, halacha hi ben-nazir. It's a special halacha l'Moshe Sinai, applied to a nazir. Asks the Gemara, only a nazir fits the bill? V'su leka, we don't apply to other similar situations. There are other individuals who are meant to bring many karbanis. You have a mitzvah who's meant to bring a chata sa'if, an oila sa'if. If he's not able to afford more, if he can go higher, he should bring the animals, behemais, all different examples, different situations where you have one individual experiencing some sort of experience which triggers multiple karbanis. And suppose he has this general fund, which is now, for some reason, unneeded. Why would it be different than the Nazir? We don't apply it to other cases. V'atanya, listen to this brayso, which seems to apply it to a mitzvah as well. All other individuals were obligated to bring birds, like the mitzvah we just mentioned. So one bird is meant to be for the chatas, one for the oila. Now, what happens if they set aside money? Shefri shemois likineim. So they set aside money to buy, their pairs of birds. So suppose a Matzara put aside some money meant to purchase a Chatas bird, an Oila bird. but it wasn't yet, earmarked, it wasn't yet labeled. It was a general fund meant for purchasing of both birds. Now suppose his fortunes improved. He got wealthy. And now he's meant to bring a behema. He can do that. He can take that money, can use that general fund towards purchase of a behema. And the chiddush is, let's say he wants to take the entire fund, the entire $10, which was meant for a chatas bird and an oila bird, and direct it towards a chatas behema. Yavi, you can do that. Despite the fact that part of that money was meant for an oila. And the Tosfos points out, was speaking that he said, this money is litzarati, towards my tzaras. So theoretically, he doesn't have to split it between chatas and oila. He can use the entire thing for the chatas and add some more money for the oila. And that's why in this case, when he's upgrading to an animal, he can take all that money and buy with it a chatas behema. So Ratza, Lahavi, Ben Chatas Behema, Yavi, you can do so. Likewise, if he chooses to bring an Oila As Behema, take the entire fund and purchase with it an animal for Oila, Yavi, you can do that as well and find some more money for the Chatas. Okay, that's the first halach. That's one chiddush. Here comes the main point that pertains to our discussion. Leftover monies, unused monies, mace, this mitzvah passes away. And he has a general fund, a carbon fund, which was not yet separated into portions, not yet labeled and tagged, chatas, oila, and shlamim, right? What happens to this money? Despite the fact that there is chatas money there, yiplu l'nadava, you send it to the nadava. Apparently, this is a general idea pertaining to every individual who's experienced some event which triggered multiple karbonis, and he allocated money for those karbonis, and now their money is unused. You take it to l'nadava. So why does Rabbi Yehuda specify halachi bin Nazir? It's not limited to Nazir. It applies to anybody else as well who went through a similar experience. The answer is you're right. Tana Nazir. Although Rabbi Yehuda did mention Nazir, it wasn't just Nazir. Tana Nazir, he mentioned Nazir. And of course, v'chayav kinin the damolei, and it applies to all those who are meant to bring, these pairs of birds, double karbonis, chatas and olam, which are similar to the Nazir, in a sense that it's a single source, a single cause for these multiple karbonis. So the person was a mitzvah, and that mitzvah experience triggered these karbanis, chatas and oila, and he set aside one general fund for the entire, for everything I'm meant to bring. So even though there's a chatas potential in there, but if the money is unused, I can send it to the nidava. This is similar to the Nazir, whose Nazirus triggered that multiple chigiv of karbanis, as opposed to a case where a fellow happens to have two separate obligations, as opposed to the case described in the following brisa, when the two karbanos are totally unconnected, unrelated. They were not triggered by the same event. They're not sourced in the same root cause. For instance, Mishaya Muchayev Chatas. Reuven was chayav to bring a chatas, right? For eating chelav, for instance. So the chatas is rooted in the aveira of chelav. V'amar harei alai oila. Then he decides, I want to really make up for what I did. I want to bring an oila as well. Oila is a doira, the Gemara in Zvachim calls it. It's a gift. I want to add a gift to the chatas. Okay, so now he's chayav two things. Chatas on account of eating the chelav, and oila on account of his generosity. So there are two separate chiyuvim unrelated to each other. And he sets up a fund. Va'amar, and he says, Harei elu l'chayvasi. This money will accommodate my obligation. Everything I'm obligated to bring. Okay? So now, the money is meant for the chatas as well as the oila. And therefore, Ratza lahavi ben chatas behema la yavi. He chooses to change his mind. He found a real nice looking plump animal. He wants to use that as a chatas to get a real nice kapara out of it. He's going to redirect all the funds to the chatas. You can't do that because a portion of it was meant for the oila. Oila's beima chooses to bring a huge oila with all this money. Lo yavi, he cannot do that. What then does he do? So Taisa says, he finds two animals, and he says, look, all the chatas element within this fund should be applied on this animal. The oila element within this fund should apply to this animal, because that's what the money was meant for. You can't now divert the money to just chatas or just oila. Okay, that's number one. So you see one difference between this case and the previous discussion. Here it's not just a general fund to account for his personal experience of Nazir, so Tzaras, which happens to have many karbanis within it. When he says l'chayvasi, I'm bringing this from my obligation, he has two separate obligations, chatas and oila. So you can't divert it to one over the other. He has to take this money and direct it to the chatas and to the oila. That's number one. Next halacha, this is the focal point of our sugya. Meis, he passes away. This fellow who had two separate chiyuvim passed away, leaving behind this money unused. What happens? Yelchu liyam melach. Because there is chatas money there, it goes to the yam melach. Clearly, this fund is treated so differently than the Nazir's fund, than the Mitzvah's fund, than the Yoledis' fund. You know why? Because in contrast to those individuals who had a certain experience, Nazir's, Tzaras, Leda, which triggered multiple karbanis, for which this fellow allocated money. The money is there to accommodate his chiyuv, his Nazir's, his Tzaras, his Leda, which happens to have many karbanis included. And on that we say the halacha mishmei Sinai. If the money is left unused, send it to l'nadava. Because it wasn't yet, there was no specified chatas element within it. It was a general, generic fund to accommodate the chiyuv and nazirs, which happens to have chatas in it. So it doesn't really directly identify with chatas at this early point, and therefore it goes l'nadava, as opposed to this fellow who had two separate chiyuvim, unrelated. Oila happened to have chatas as well. He set aside money. The money there is partially meant for oila, partially for chatas. It's called mei chatas. And therefore, if it's left unused, what do we do with mei chatas? The mei chatas, money used for chatas, money meant to be used for chatas, which is not needed anymore, goes liyam melach, never to be used again. So bottom line is, this concept applies to Nazir, to Metzora, to Yoledes, where it's the experience that encompasses all those karbanis, and the money was designated for that experience, so to speak, to accommodate the obligation generated by that experience. It's not considered Demei Chatas per se. And over there we have the halacha, Mois Stumen, unused a fund which was not yet earmarked and labeled, goes l'nadava, as opposed to our case, which is considered the mechatas liyam hamelach. Now, even by the Nazir, this is only by setumen, but if it's mifu Russian, this fellow designated, labeled the monies. In that case, the chatas money goes liyam hamelach as well. Omar Ravashi, how do we define mifu Russian? What's called specification? Had the amras mifu Russian line. When you tell me specified, does not go l'nadava. Lo yitema. Don't think that needs to be explicitly, outrightly specified. Lo yitema the amar elu lechatasi. We're not speaking only in a case where he actually sets up three piles. These are for the chatas, ve'elu lo'ilase, these for the oila, ve'elu shlami, these for my shlamim. Not only that is considered mifurash, in which case the chatas money is thrown into Yam HaMelach. Ela afilu amar elu lechatasi, ulay lasei l'shlami. Even if he has one single pile, one single satchel with money, he says, you know what? This money is for my chatas oila v'shlamim. That too is mifurashin hein, because he gave it a name. He labeled it. Some explain further. Amar Ravashi. Not only in that last case, when he took the single pile and he labeled it, this is for my chata oila shlamim, is it called mifurashin? Not only there, isn't it a chiddush? It goes even more than that. Even if he just said, this is my obligation. This is to satisfy my chiyuv, or my chiyuvim. The chiyuv of the Nazirus, the chiyuv of the Mitzvah, which obviously encompasses all three karbanis. That too is considered mefurashin, harein mefurashin, kimufurashin. It is as though he specified, this is my chatas, this is my ilah, this is my shlamim, and we treat it accordingly. So according to the second version of Rashi, the only stumin is if he says, he speaks in general terms about his experience. This is for my nazirus, or my karbanis nazirus. But once he goes further, even if he just says, this is for my l'chayvas, for my chayva, for my obligations. What are your obligations? One of them is chatas. We treat it as such. Amarav. Here comes another detail. Hada moran mois stumen yechlu nadava. When do we say stumen goes l'nadava? That's only when the money is meant for purchase of all three karbanis. But im nafla, or there's a girs im nifresha, demei chatas mi benein. But if he separated, he took a third of the money, put it aside for the chatas, and the remainder is meant for the oil and the shlam, hareikim nefurashin, we treat it as specified monies, in which case the chatas money goes liyam HaMelach, and the rest is meant to be used for oila and shlamim. Doesn't go to Nadava. Tanakavasi the Rava. We have a right to Rav from a Brisa. He has a pile of money. He says, Eilu l'chatas. This is for the chatas. V'ashar, the rest of the money, l'shar nazirusi, is for the rest of my nazirus, meaning the oil and the shlamim. What do we do with that? We don't treat it as setumin. Rather, we treat them as mufurashin, as though they're earmarked and designated. And therefore, the chatas goes where? Yam HaMelach. V'ashar, and the remainder, meant for the oil and the shlamim. By the way, the oila money has mi'ilah, because an oila carries with it a mi'ilah, penalty. If one is benefits from an oila before so it has mi'ilah. And likewise, the funding for the oila has the same halacha, and the shlamim does not have mi'ilah. So that's exactly what happens to this money. Part of it is a potential oila, which carries the mi'ilah consequence, and part of it is a potential shlamim, which does not have mi'ilah. Vashar, the rest of the money, yavi chetzi lo'ila, chetzi l'shlamim. Half it goes lo'ila, half l'shlamim. Suppose he diverted it for his own personal benefit. Depends how much he used. The entire money, which inevitably contains the oila element as well, or even most of the money, the Tosfos points out, even most of it. So he's certainly gone into oila territory. He committed milah. But suppose he only used part of it for his own personal use. That could have been the shlamim money, which doesn't have milah. He only used a small portion of it, less than 50%. 50% or less. He committed no milah because we can just attribute it to the shlamim money. Now what if he has a pile of money? Let's start the story again. He has a collection of funds, and he says, Eilu lo'ilasi. I want to earmark the oila money. This is for the oila. Vashar. And the rest is l'sha'ar nazirusi for the other karbanos nazirus, meaning shlamim and chatas. What do we do? D'mei oila yaviu oila. The oila money is meant for the oila. U'mei alam b'hen, which carries mi'ilah as well. V'ashar, and the rest of the money, which contains two elements, shlamim element and a chatas element. Oh, now we apply the halacha of the nadava because of the chatas element within it. V'ashar, you plu nadava. Umay alim bikulan, and once again, since the remainder has a chatas element and a shlamim element. The chatas element carries milah, shlamim does not. So if he used the entire thing or most of it, he committed milah. As opposed to he only used part of it, we can attribute it to the shlamim which has no milah. So Rava was machadish to us that even if he has a general, carbon fund, which was not yet specified, but once he specified even a portion of it, we treat it differently. Continues the Gemara, Amar Rav Huna Amar Rav, Lo yishanu ala mois, this halacha, that mois is tumen, gold and adava, that's strictly pertaining to money. Aval behema, harehi k'meforeshus. Suppose he set aside 3 animals. And Taisus explains, we're speaking about animals which are not really suitable for his personal karbonis. A Nazir needs to have a sheep, a keves for the oila, a kivsa, female sheep for the chatas, an ayil, a ram for the shlamim. He set aside 3 cows. He's not going to use them for the actual karbonis Nazir, but he's going to sell them off and use the money to finance his karbonis. In this case, we say, well, if he passes away and it's not needed, we can't send it linadava. Harei k'muforeshes. We treat it like muforeshes. We'll explain soon why this is. So, Amar Rav Nachman, Hada Amri Behema, Harei k'muforeshes. This concept of behema is treated like specified funds. In which case, the chatas money goes to the Amamelech, etc. Lo yishana, it's only el tmima. If the animals reserved for purpose of financing his karbonis nazir were unblemished. In which case, as Taisus explains, when he sets them aside, when he reserves them, he's magdish them, they become kedushas haguf. They become inherently kaddish. In which case, you can't just visit your local marketplace and sell them off. You have to wait till they get a mum. Send them out to pasture till they get a blemish. It takes a while. And by that time, he might actually, call them by name. Oh, this is the chatas, this is the oila, this is the shlamim. If it's there long enough, he might forget himself and give them labels, give them names, tag them. And therefore we treat them like mufurash. Aval balas mum, but suppose these animals that he reserved for the karbonis nazir, for financing of his future karbonis, contain mums and blemishes, in which case he can go right away to the marketplace and exchange them for money. Hari kistum, we treat it like mois tumen, unspecified funds, which, as we explained before, if they're left over and unneeded, we send them linadav. So again, if he set aside animals for purchase of his karbonis nazir, well, it depends. If they're tamimin, they have kedusha. You have to wait until you can get the mum, etc. We treat them as though they've been specified. This is the chatas, this is the oil, this is the shlamim, and the chatas will end up going liyam hamelach. The chatas funds liyam hamelach. But if it's a balas mum, if they have mumin, then we treat them just like any other commodity. We treat them like money, unspecified funds, golden and dove. Aval nas chaloi. But let's say he set aside, bullion, bars of silver. That's something that has to be appraised and evaluated. It's not like currency. In which case we say that if he put aside 3 bars of gold, 3 bars of silver for his karbonis, for instance, we don't look at it like it's just a generic fund. It's like mufurashin. It's as though this is, for the chatas, this is part of the bars for the oila, it's part for the shlamim. Why? Because this halacha of stumin yiplu nadava was specific to money. That's the halacha. You have a fund which is unspecified. It's a shared fund. It's a collective fund. Despite the fact that there's a chatas element within it, we don't care. We send it on a dava. We don't see the chatas there. It's part of that generic fund. It's stumen l'nadava. But if we have items which are not considered currency, they're chafetzim, things of value. So we say this part that was meant for the chatas, whether it's a separate bar or perhaps even the same bar, but this item or part of this item was meant for chatas. It's considered labeled as meant for chatas. It's dmei chatas. Right? You see a difference between a fund, which is like fluid. It's unspecified. It's untagged, unlabeled. It's unidentified. A general fund for my 3 karbanis. It's one mix. It's one entity. But when you have items of value, which are not easily converted into money, you have to appraise it, to go value it, then this item is tagged as the chatos item. This as the oila, this as the shlam. That's sort of 3 separate, items, 3 separate items of value. In which case, this is chatos, this is oila, this is shlamim, and you cannot just send the l'nadava. Rather, whichever part identifies with the chatos goes liyam hamelach. So that's Rav Nachman's chiddush. That comes to animals, tamima is a problem. Balas mum is like as good as money, but an item like nascha is not. For Rav Nachman Yitzchak Amar, he disagrees. I feel a nascha, even bars of gold and silver, it's close enough to money. It's treated like currency. Has the same halacha of mois. Aval savar shel kurish loy, but you have some other expensive item. You have a pile up of construction beams. That's certainly not. It's not a commodity. In that case, it's just a chayfetz. It's a piece of merchandise. It's an item, and the chatas element within it, meaning the part of the pile that was meant for chatas, is considered dmei chatas. It's been earmarked. It's been labeled as something which identifies with chatas, and if it's unneeded, it goes liyam hamelach. Okay, perhaps I should stop here and we'll pick it up tomorrow. Bottom line is, we have the halacha, unused funds go l'nadava. Now, who reserved those funds? What are they meant for? So it has to fit in a certain bill. Number one, it has to be funds designated for an individual who underwent a certain experience which triggered multiple karbanis, all sourced in that experience. You have a Nazir, put aside money for his chatas eila and shlamim, triggered by his Naziris. A Mitzayr set aside money for his chatas and eila, triggered by his saras. If that money is left unused, send it l'nadava, despite the fact that it has a chatas element within it. It's not yet been designated for chatas. It's a general fund, triggered by his Naziris, by his saras. It goes l'nadava. As opposed to a fellow who had 2 separate reasons, one for the oila, one for the chatas, and set aside a general fund for both. Half of it goes l'oila, half the chatas, and if it's left unused, the chatas portion goes liyam hamelach. What is considered stumen, unspecified? What is considered labeled, specified? In which case the chatas element goes liyam hamelach. We're speaking about even a nazir or a metzora. According to one version, even if he just says, well, this pile here is from my chatas oila v'shlamim, that's already called mefurish. According to the second version, even if he just says l'chayvasi, it's called mefurish. And the only way it works if he just says, linzi rusi, not relating to his actual obligations. That we don't relate it. It's not identified as chatas money at that point. Rava says if he has a pile but separates a portion for chatas funding, that's called mei chatas, and the rest is called dmei oila and shlamim. The Gemara tells us this only applies to money, but not to animals which are tmimin, perhaps not to the nascha, and certainly not to the svar shel kairos. These are called items of value, merchandise, and this halach only applies to one collective a fluid fund. All the best to you, Atzlacha Rava and Besuras Taivas.